So, let's see here. In this video, I'm going to talk about Rio de Janeiro versus Fortaleza, Brazil. Okay, and you can see my conclusion. If you don't know where these places are, I will show you. Here's Rio de Janeiro, right? This is Brazil. And up in the north, you have Fortaleza. Okay? And I lived for, I don't know, about 7.5 months or so in Fortaleza in total, right? In total. Recently, 6 months. And as of 2 days ago, I just got back from Rio de Janeiro. Okay. At the present moment, I'm in the States. However, I was just for 3 months in Rio. And I'm trying to make up my mind if I want to go to Barranquilla or back to Fortaleza. I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do at this very moment. But here's the deal. I'm going to go through all of these points here and just kind of extemporaneously, off the cuff, speak about them. I don't have a script of any kind, right? I've just got this list here. So if you want to know what I'm going to talk about during the whole video, you can pause this and look through these. And if it looks uninteresting, you can, click away or whatever. So, as I stated previously, I really feel like Fortaleza is just far better. And I'm trying to answer these questions, okay, from the perspective of a Western expat who is interested in long-term living in one or both of these places, okay? Maybe it's just for 6 months. Maybe you're thinking of retiring there. Maybe you think you want to try it for a year. Or maybe you're not that interested in Brazil, so you don't want to invest that much time and energy. If that's the case, well, this video is definitely something you want to look at, because I'd say Rio is not a good choice for, if you're a guy, let's say you're 40 years old and beyond, and you also have some concern about the costs, right? The costs and some of these other things, then Fortaleza is better. Okay. What are the reasons? How about the culture and the local flavor of Rio de Janeiro? It's more macho and pushy, and I don't think that's necessarily wrong. It's kind of the big city-ish push, go, get out of my way. I'm going to interrupt you, just cut to the chase. As compared to Fortaleza, where it's a much slower, people take their time. They're looking out. It's very, very sunny. It's very nice. Here you're look at Rio, not very good. Fortaleza, massive sunshine. They're sitting there thinking, oh, it's so sunny and so nice. I've got the time to treat you and interact with you in a more, I would say it's a more human way. There's no value in push, go. It's foolish, I think, really. And I don't want to get into a tangent or into the weeds. That's a deeper discussion, but why that is, or why it's stupid, blah, blah, blah. But you'll feel it regardless of why, and you'll feel it. And in Fortaleza, there's just much less of it, right? There's just much less of it. And I'm just not keen on it. A man in my early 50s, I don't need that. I will say that in favor of Rio beats out Fortaleza in terms of the open-mindedness of locals towards foreigners, towards any kind of person. They don't pay you much attention, and they're more focused on what's this transaction about, not are you a foreigner, or if you're a foreigner, what does this mean? No, 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 no. They just want to know what's the price. Maybe because you're a foreigner, they think maybe they can get a little higher price, but not necessarily. They know that people can look around at prices, so they just want to complete the transaction. And also, it's an issue of, I guess you could say hatred. When some foreigner comes around, when you're in a smaller city, a smaller town, especially the men. When another man comes around who's obviously not from there, sometimes they exhibit some behaviors that they want to push you out and get rid of you or keep you away. So in this sense, Rio is a little better, I would say, because they don't really, because they do know you're a foreigner sometimes. Now, I've said before that they don't really know you're a foreigner before you open your mouth. And that's true. That's true, but I'd say 50% of the time they do know. So it does make some difference. Okay, one thing about Fortaleza. In Fortaleza, there are very few English-speaking expats, right? And I touch on this very briefly in a blog. I've got two channels. There's this one here, Rob in Brazil, and then this one over here. And if you go to right here, I talk about this in my blog, Rob in Fortaleza. I've got an issue. I discuss this. Yeah, here it is. Very few English-speaking expats. I was very surprised in Fortaleza that I never ran into an English-speaking expat. Oh, I would run into Swedes. I would run into Italians. I would run into Norwegians. Lots of them. The Europeans seem to be really hip to what's going on in North Brazil there. They really know something about that's going on there, and you find many more of them. I don't know why that is. In Rio, though, there are tons of English-speaking expats. So that's maybe something that you care about. I don't. Okay, in Fortaleza, there is no Afro-Brazilian culture. You will see none of it. It's almost completely gone. I'm not gone. It was never really there. Okay. So in Rio and Salvador, it's better for that. Rio is better for that than Fortaleza, and Salvador is much better. So Cariocas, they are very gregarious people, but they're also, I touched on this briefly earlier, but I think it's gotten worse over the last 20 years. Because when I was there in 2001, 2002, part of 2003, it was a slower culture in Brazil, and there hasn't been this internationalization of culture, but the Cariocas have always been very gregarious and mouthy and talking and boom, boom. I don't like the way they do that. It's bothersome. It really is rather bothersome. And at any rate. So I had to go back to see my old Rio, to see what it was like, because I was there long ago, over 20 years ago. And I had a lot of memories from Rio. So what about dating? Okay, easy. Much better in North Brazil. All right, much better in North Brazil. Now, hold on just a moment. The girls up there in Fortaleza and the surrounding areas, the cities near Fortaleza and the suburbs of Fortaleza and Ceará, will date you even if you're 20 years older, much more readily than in Rio de Janeiro. That's the first thing one of the first thing I noticed on Badu, on Bumble, on Brazil Cupid, was I got very few responses from girls that were in their early 30s or late 20s. Whereas in Fortaleza, I did get some chicks who were, a number of chicks. One of them was very young. She's 22 now. But she was, oh God, she was wild. Her personality was just too grating. I couldn't be in the same room with her sometimes for one day, let alone, I really liked her. She's the best girl I've gotten of this, of the last quite some time. But God, I couldn't be around her. I couldn't stay with her. It just, not because I'd go with another, but just because her incessant talking, the Instagram, the silliness, it is just, anyways, long story short, you're going to do better, especially if you're a man who's over 40. Let's say you're 40 years old and up. I would say definitely North Brazil. So one thing though, in Rio, the sheer numbers, the fact that there's so many more people in Rio, the chance, I did do some dating of some girls there in Rio, and there were some, where was the one I did it here? I think I did the blog post here. Here it is. Okay. You can go to this blog post here. I've scratched out the face. I don't always do it. I'm not perfect. But I wrote a blog post about it. And the kind of girls, and I deleted this one because it got, I did this video about 2 months ago, and I got so much flack. I got so many people saying so much comments, I just finally deleted it. And so, at any rate, because I figured, well, they're going to construe things so that I sound like I'm saying something I shouldn't, and then they're going to try to get me banned, and that sort of thing. And I just said it's not worth it. But this blog post will lay it all out for you pretty well. So, yeah, I kind of go into the idea that, well, at any rate, I'm not going to go too much into the details there. It's just that there are so many girls in Rio that it's easier to find a match when there's so many people there. So I've already touched on this part. Okay, weather. Again, Fortaleza absolutely wins. Fortaleza absolutely destroys Rio de Janeiro on that score. All right, here's Rio de Janeiro, average monthly sunshine hours. You look at it cruising around here, 200, it dips below 200. Now, Fortaleza, boom, look up here, 300. Look at how long you have at 300. Just a substantial amount of time, right? And you notice, if you look back, remember, Rio is cruising in around here at 200, and it gets down to 150. For 1 month, it gets to about 150 sunshine hours per month. This gauges just the total amount of sunshine you're going to get. And some of these graphs on this website are not quite right. Okay, some of them are not quite right, but generally, they're in the ballpark. And you can see that, yeah, Fortaleza has a rainy period here. But if you look at the 250, Rio is not getting up to 250. You have a substantial amount of time, or Fortaleza is well over that. And there's only a little moment where it dips to the same level as Rio. So Fortaleza wins. And the temperature is always warm in Fortaleza. Okay, it's always warm in Fortaleza, whereas in Rio de Janeiro, you kind of get a little bit of a winter. You get it where it's just a teeny bit chilly sometimes. That is unacceptable. I'm interested in finding permanent summer, right? That's my utopia, is permanent summer, and I would also have permanent sun. But of course, you'd be looking at a desert climate, which that doesn't. So I won't go any further in the rabbit hole there. Cost of living. Fortaleza destroys Rio de Janeiro in this area too. Absolutely destroys it. Okay. Let's look here. Hold on just a sec. Okay. The cost of, well, let's, all right. I clicked on these pictures, so let's just hit on this now. You can get everything you want in Fortaleza that you can find in Rio. Anything you can find in Rio, you can find in Fortaleza. This is Shopping Iguatemi. They have a number of shopping centers but in Fortaleza, but this is the biggest one. And it's cool. I extended my visa in this very shopping center. Yes, I'll state that again. I extended my Brazilian tourist visa in this shopping center. Okay, it's down below in the basement. There's a little government office there. They even have a printer and the whole deal across the way down there in the basement. End of story. Very convenient. And they've got everything in this place. And it's actually bigger and more modern. It was made at a later date than the shopping malls in Rio. So they were able to take advantage of all these new technologies and design and this and that. And they really went to town and did a good job. Better than what they have in Rio. Sorry. Yeah. So Uber is regularly twice as expensive in Rio. I would say on average it's more like about 25%, a good 25% more expensive in Rio. But oftentimes they have these certain peak hours in Rio where it's just no good at all. So, and that same thing goes for apartments. I was staying in this place. It was $1,300 a month. And by the way, if you guys want to, I was mixing some of my videos. If you want to see, I'll put the link to this other channel I have for Colombia and I've got a bunch of Rio de Janeiro and Brazil videos in here, but I really need to any Brazil video, I need to keep it in the Brazil section. At any rate, I was renting an apartment in Rio de Janeiro that was $1,300 at this one, and it was okay. It was very safe. It had so many things that were really great. But I got the same thing for like $850 or $800 in Fortaleza, right? I mean, come on. I mean, it was just so that speaks for itself. I mean, just come on. Now, Rio is overcrowded, right? Fortaleza is spread out. Look, this is Ipanema. Here's Copacabana. Rio is like a pack. It's like a pack of sardines. Everyone's there pushing you. Go out your door and blah, blah. Now, the exception to that is Barra da Tijuca. You can live in Barra da Tijuca, that neighborhood of Rio, and it is. You can see the video right here. Barra. It's a good neighborhood. It's a little more spread out, but basically Fortaleza, there's just more space. There's more elbow room. And I think we've all heard of that study, or there's some scientific study where they put rats in close proximity, they jammed them all together, and lo and behold, they start fighting. There's all kinds of conflict and this, that, and the other. Which reminds me, all right, safety. I think you're much more likely to have non-crime related conflict with locals in Rio de Janeiro than you are in Fortaleza. Right? People are just a little more laid back in Fortaleza. They've got some time. They're not push, go. And I think that's very good. I'm not going to Brazil to work, right? And I imagine none of you are either. 90% of you won't be doing that. Maybe you're remote working, maybe you're retired, maybe you're doing a little business of some kind, but in that case, maybe you do want to be in Rio, Sao Paulo. So excluding those, maybe it's 15%, but the vast majority of people don't have an interest in being in a big city place. So Now, so as far as crime, I'm not sure which is more dangerous. I've never been robbed. Okay. And I've never had my apartment broken into and people doing anything like that either. I'm careful. So I think perhaps Rio is more dangerous. I've seen people have things stolen from them in Rio. I'd hear a, "Bye, what are you going on?" And I'll see some old guy moving around trying to chase after some young kid who's run off with their stuff. I saw that happen quite a bit. I saw that happen, I think, at least 3 times. I saw one time where there was some kids beating up some other, some of them were kids and some of them were teenagers. They were beating up this one guy. And then another time I saw a kid on a bicycle. He looked like he was 14 or 15. He grabbed someone's camera and just went off on his bicycle going as quick as possible. So I would say Rio is less safe because I never saw that in Fortaleza. I've never seen that. So there's my perspective on it. And have a good one, you guys.